The trade station known as Haven's Edge floated in silence above a gray moon. It was not beautiful, nor was it clean, but it was busy. Merchants, travelers, and wanderers from many species passed through its narrow halls every day. For some, it was a place of opportunity. For others, it was a place to escape. Among the travelers was a human named Aran. He was not a soldier or a diplomat. He was not famous or wealthy. Aaron was only a worker who repaired small machines for anyone willing to pay a few credits. He had lived on Haven's Edge for nearly a year, moving from one repair job to another, saving just enough to keep himself alive. Humans were not common on the station, but they were not rare either. Most who saw him barely paid attention. Aaron often walked through the market ring where the air smelled of spice and oil. Stalls were crowded with glowing tools, strange food, and fabrics that shifted color under the light. Voices shouted prices in many tongues. Amid this noise and motion, he noticed something unusual one cold evening. A small figure moved slowly across the metal floor. It was an alien girl, thin and fragile, her feet bare against the sharp and freezing plates of the market. Her skin was pale blue, with faint patterns like silver threads across her arms. She wore a robe that was worn and too short, its edges frayed. The people around her kept walking, not even glancing her way. Some nearly stepped on her, but none stopped to help. Aaron paused. He had seen poverty on Earth and had grown used to hardship in space, but this felt different. The girl's steps were painful to watch. Each time her foot touched the floor, she flinched. She hugged her arms around herself as though to keep warm. Aaron looked down at his own boots, sturdy but old. They were the only pair he owned. Without them, his feet would suffer on the cold station decks. Still, he could not walk past. Something inside told him that if he ignored her, he would carry the guilt forever. He knelt down in front of the girl. At first, she pulled back, her bright eyes wide with fear. No one else had spoken to her, and she did not expect a stranger to kneel. Aaron gave a gentle smile. "You look like you need these more than I do," he said softly. She did not answer, only watched with surprise as he untied his boots and slipped them off. The metal under his own feet bit at his skin immediately, but he ignored the pain. He pushed the boots toward her and nodded. The girl hesitated. Her hands trembled as she reached out. It was clear that she had never been offered such a gift before. Slowly, she slid the boots onto her feet. They were far too large, but they protected her from the cold floor. When she finally looked up at him, her eyes glistened as though she might cry. She spoke in a quiet voice, a language Aaron barely understood, but the meaning was clear. "Why?" Aaron shrugged. "Because you needed them. That is enough." Before he could say more, a group of merchants shouted nearby, breaking the moment. The girl glanced around in fear, then back at him. She gave a small bow, her silver hair falling forward, and then hurried away into the crowd. Aaron stood there barefoot, watching until she vanished. The cold of the floor grew sharper, and people stared at him as if he were foolish. Some laughed, others shook their heads. To them, giving away one's only boots was madness. But Aaron felt lighter. He did not know who she was or where she came from, yet the act filled him with quiet peace. That night, he returned to the small room he rented above a repair stall. His feet ached from the cold, but he slept better than he had in weeks. The next morning, the market buzzed with strange talk. Whispers moved quickly among the stalls. Some spoke of an alien girl who had been seen wearing human boots. Others spoke of a human who had knelt in front of her, giving away what little he owned. None of the merchants had ever seen such a thing before. On Haven's Edge, kindness was rare, and selfless kindness was nearly unknown. Aaron paid little attention. He assumed the story would vanish as quickly as it spread. People always liked rumors, but they moved on just as fast. He continued repairing machines, working with quiet focus. Yet throughout the day, he noticed something unusual. Whenever he passed, some aliens watched him with cautious eyes. Others whispered, pointing in his direction. A few even nodded with what seemed like respect. Aaron could not understand why. He thought it must be because of the boots, but surely it was not such a big matter. As the day ended, he sat by the window of a small canteen, eating a simple bowl of grain stew. His feet were still bare, and the metal floor was still cold. He looked out into space, wondering if the girl was safe. That was all he hoped for. But far above the station, events had already begun to move in ways Aaron could not imagine. The girl he had helped was not simply a lost traveler. She was the daughter of a powerful commander, hidden among the people for reasons no outsider knew. The gift of boots was not only an act of kindness. For her people, it was a symbol that carried weight far beyond the market ring of Haven's Edge. And in the silence of space, ships were already gathering. The station of Haven's Edge had always been full of noise. Merchants shouted prices, engines roared, and travelers argued in many languages. But on the morning after Aaron gave away his shoes, a new kind of noise spread. It was quieter than shouting, carried not by loud voices but by whispers. Whispers are powerful. They slip through locked doors and cross crowded markets. They travel faster than trade ships, for they cling to the ears of those eager for stories. That day the whispers carried the name of one human who had done something strange. Some said foolish, others said brave. In the repair stalls, 2 engineers from a reptilian race bent their heads close as they worked on a fuel valve. They say he gave his only boots to her, one hissed. To her? The barefoot one? Yes, she vanished after that. But she wore the boots when she left. Both shook their heads slowly. On Haven's Edge, survival meant keeping what you had. Giving away tools, clothes, or credits for nothing was madness. Yet the image of a human kneeling in the cold offering his own shoes had begun to grow into something greater than truth. Aaron did not care for these whispers. He spent his day repairing machines, his hands blackened with oil and metal dust. The only thing he noticed was that more customers seemed to watch him closely. Some spoke politely for the first time, as though afraid of offending him. Others kept their distance as if he had become something dangerous. At midday, he went to the food ring for a meal. The canteen was busier than usual, filled with sharp voices and the smell of roasted grain. Aaron carried his tray to a corner table, hoping to eat quietly. But he felt eyes on him from every direction. A group of insectoid merchants buzzed softly, their antennae tilted his way. A pair of tall-feathered travelers looked at him, whispering under their beaks. Aaron shifted in his seat, uncomfortable. Finally, an old station worker approached. She was not human, but a scaled being with gray skin and calm eyes. She carried no tray of food, only a walking staff. She stopped by his table. "You are the one who gave away your shoes?" she asked. Aaron sighed. "Yes, it was nothing. The girl needed them." The worker nodded slowly. "Nothing to you. Everything to her." Then she turned and left, leaving Aaron staring at his stew. The rest of the day passed in much the same way. Wherever he went, people whispered, but none explained why the matter was so important. He returned to his room at night, lying awake on his narrow bed. He wondered who the girl was. He wondered why she had been alone and barefoot. Above all, he wondered why a simple act of kindness had become the center of attention in a place where no one cared about such things. But far away, the whispers had already reached ears that would never ignore them. On the edge of the system, beyond the sight of Haven's Edge, a fleet drifted in silence. They belonged to a people known for their pride and power. Their ships were long and sharp, covered in silver plates that reflected the light of distant stars. Inside one of the largest vessels, a council gathered. At the center of the chamber stood the alien girl, now wearing the oversized boots. She looked small in the vast hall, but her presence commanded silence. She was no ordinary traveler. She was the daughter of Commander Vera, one of the most feared leaders of her people. For weeks she had walked among strangers, hidden in plain sight, testing how outsiders treated her kind. She told her story in a soft voice. She spoke of cold metal floors, of people who ignored her, and of one human who stopped. She described how he had knelt and given away his only pair of shoes. She told them of the warmth she felt, not in her feet but in her heart. The council listened. Some frowned, some whispered, but none dared dismiss her words. To their people, shoes had meaning. To stand barefoot on the ground of another world was a sign of weakness, a loss of dignity. To give one's shoes was to give honor itself, and the human had given that honor freely, without demand, without price. Commander Vera rose from his seat. His voice was deep, echoing across the chamber. "Humans are known as fierce, reckless, and dangerous," he said. "But this one has shown a strength that no weapon can match: compassion. My daughter was barefoot, and he knelt to her. Tell me, Council, how many of our own would have done the same?" Silence followed. No one answered. The commander struck his staff against the floor. "Then we will honor him. Let the fleet move to Haven's Edge. Let all who dwell there see that even the smallest act of kindness can change the will of an armada." The council bowed their heads. The order was given. Engines roared to life, and the silver ships turned toward the station. On Haven's Edge, life seemed normal the next day, but beneath the surface, tension grew. The whispers had reached every corner. Some thought the human had acted out of foolish pity. Others began to believe he was a chosen figure touched by fate. Merchants argued in the market stalls, repeating the story in louder and louder voices. Aaron himself remained quiet. He spent the day fixing a broken comms unit, trying to block out the noise. Yet deep inside he felt uneasy. The whispers were no longer about a pair of boots. They had become something bigger, something heavy. He wondered if he had made a mistake. That evening, as he walked barefoot back to his room, he noticed something strange outside the station windows. Stars shifted as though shadows moved across them. Then came a low hum so deep it vibrated through the floor. People poured into the corridors, pointing and gasping. Ships. Hundreds of silver ships surrounded Haven's Edge. They moved with perfect order, their forms sharp against the dark sky. The station alarms blared, warning of possible attack. Panic spread through the halls. Merchants closed their stalls. Families ran for the shelters. The market ring emptied in minutes. Aaron stood frozen. He had seen warships before, but never so many, never so close. He knew at once that these were not pirates or traders. This was an armada, and he did not yet know that they had come because of him. In the command tower of Haven's Edge, officers shouted reports. The station master, a thick-bodied alien with iron-gray skin, demanded answers. Why are they here? Why do they not fire? The silver ships did not attack. They did not even aim weapons. Instead, they held their positions in silence, forming a vast circle around the station. Lights flashed between them in patterns that none of the station crew understood. Then, slowly, one of the largest vessels moved forward. It stopped just beyond the station's shields. A single shuttle detached and glided toward the docking ring. Aaron, unaware of these movements, returned to his small room. He tried to rest, but the station shook as the shuttle connected. Heavy footsteps echoed through the hallways. The air seemed to grow colder. There was a knock at his door. When Aaron opened it, he found two towering guards in silver armor. Between them stood the girl. She was no longer dressed in a ragged robe. She wore fine garments of her people, and though the boots on her feet were still far too big, she carried herself with the grace of royalty. Her eyes met Aaron's. "My father wishes to see you," she said. Aaron blinked, uncertain, his mind racing. He wanted to ask why, but the words froze in his throat. The guards waited with silent patience. And for the first time, Aaron began to realize that giving away his shoes was not the end of the story. It was only the beginning. The guards led Aaron through the winding corridors of Haven's Edge. Their silver armor glowed under the pale lights, and their movements were silent, disciplined, and exact. Between them walked the girl, her robe no longer torn but woven from fine silver threads that shimmered with every step. Though the boots on her feet were far too large, she wore them with pride, as if they were symbols rather than simple shoes. Aaron followed in confusion. He had never been escorted like this before, and every step made him more uneasy. Station workers stopped and stared as the group passed. Some bowed their heads while others whispered in fear. The silver-armored guards ignored everyone, their focus fixed ahead. They reached the docking ring where a wide door slid open to reveal a sleek shuttle. Its hull reflected the lights like a mirror. Inside, the air smelled of metal and spice. The guards guided Aaron to a seat, and the girl sat across from him. For a long moment, neither spoke. The hum of the engines filled the silence. Aaron looked down at his bare feet, still aching from the cold floors. At last, he raised his eyes. "Why are you doing this?" he asked. The girl studied him. Her voice was calm but carried weight far beyond her young years. "You gave me your shoes," she said. "You did not ask who I was. You did not ask for reward. You only gave. Do you understand what that means to my people?" Aaron shook his head. "It was nothing. You were in pain. I couldn't just walk past." She leaned closer. "It was not nothing. It was everything." The shuttle shuddered as it connected with the massive flagship that loomed outside the station. The door opened and bright light spilled inside. The guard stepped out first, followed by the girl. Aaron rose slowly and followed. The interior of the flagship was vast. Halls stretched high above his head, lined with glowing patterns that pulsed like veins of living light. Soldiers stood in perfect rows, their silver armor polished like mirrors. All turned to watch as the group passed, but none spoke. At the end of the hall stood a tall figure cloaked in dark silver robes. His face was stern, his eyes sharp like steel. A heavy staff rested in his hand. This was Commander Vera, leader of the Armada and father of the girl. The girl walked forward and bowed deeply before him. Aaron, uncertain of what to do, stood still. "Father," the girl said softly. "This is the human." Commander Vera's gaze shifted to Aaron. It was not the gaze of a stranger. It was the gaze of a judge, weighing the worth of the man before him. Aaron felt small, as though every flaw in his soul was being measured. "You gave my daughter your shoes," the commander said at last. His voice deep and steady. "Yes," Aaron answered. His voice quiet. "Do you know who she is?" "No. Do you know who I am?" "Yes," Aaron admitted. "Everyone knows your name. They call you the Silver Fang of the Stars." The commander's expression did not change. "And yet, without knowing her rank or mine, you knelt and gave what was yours. You lowered yourself barefoot on the cold floor of a market. Do you understand why this act shakes my people?" Aaron hesitated. He wanted to say again that it was nothing, but the weight in the room told him that nothing was far from the truth. "No," he said honestly, "I don't understand." The commander struck his staff against the floor and the sound echoed like thunder. "Then hear the truth. To us to stand barefoot is shame. It is weakness. To give away one's shoes is to strip oneself of dignity, to surrender protection. It is a gesture so rare that even among our own it is spoken of only in legend. Yet you, a human, gave them without hesitation. My daughter was no one to you, and still you gave." The hall was silent. Every soldier stood frozen, waiting. The girl looked at Aaron with pride in her eyes. Aaron felt his chest tighten. "I didn't mean to make a legend," he said softly. "I only wanted to help. That," the commander said firmly, "is why it matters. You did not seek honor, yet it came to you. You did not seek reward, yet you are owed one. Such is the strength of humans, and such is why we bow." Aaron blinked. "Bow?" The commander raised his staff high. At once every soldier in the hall dropped to one knee. Their silver armor clanged as one, echoing through the flagship. Hundreds of voices spoke together, repeating a single word in their language. Though Aaron did not know the word, he understood its meaning. It was respect. Aaron stood frozen, his bare feet cold against the polished floor. He had never felt so out of place, yet never had he felt so seen. The commander lowered his staff and the soldiers rose. He stepped forward until he stood before Aaron. "You are not just a man," he said. "You are a bridge. My daughter's story has spread across our fleet. Your act has shown us a truth we once forgot. We believed humans to be reckless, selfish, and dangerous. Now we see you are also capable of compassion stronger than steel. For this our armada will not strike fear into your kind. We will bow." Aaron struggled to find words. I don't deserve this." The commander's eyes softened slightly. "Perhaps not. But sometimes the undeserving carry the heaviest crowns. You gave without thought, and now you hold the respect of thousands. Whether you wish it or not, your story has already become legend." The girl smiled gently at him. "You are the man who knelt, barefoot, and gave shoes to one in need. That will never be forgotten." Aaron's heart pounded. He had only wanted to ease the suffering of a stranger, but now he realized he had stepped into something far larger. His simple act had stirred not only whispers but the very will of an armada. The commander turned to his daughter. "Show him the fleet." She nodded and led Aaron to a great window at the side of the hall. Beyond the glass, space stretched wide and the fleet hung in silence. Hundreds of silver ships floated in formation, their lights burning bright against the dark. Then, as if commanded by one mind, the ships tilted downward. They bowed. The sight stole Aaron's breath. Never in his life had he seen such power, and never had he thought it would bend in respect to him. The girl looked at him with a quiet smile. "You gave me warmth," she whispered. "Now they give you honor." Aaron pressed his hand against the glass, his reflection faint against the stars. He thought of the cold floor of the market, the pain in his feet, the girl's small bow of gratitude. He thought of how simple it had been. Just shoes. Just a choice, and yet, in that choice, the hidden truth revealed itself. Humanity was not respected across the stars for strength alone. It was not feared for weapons or cunning. It was honored for compassion, for the strange ability to give when nothing could be gained. That was the truth the Armada now carried. Aaron lowered his hand, his voice quiet. "I didn't plan this. But if it means peace, if it means respect between our peoples, then I am glad I gave them." The girl nodded. "It does, more than you know." Behind them, Commander Vera's voice rang out once more. "From this day, the humans are not only warriors. They are allies. Let all the stars know that the act of one has changed the fate of many. The hall thundered with the sound of soldiers striking their armor in agreement. The fleet outside remained bowed, their lights glowing like stars themselves. And so, in the heart of the flagship, a barefoot human stood at the center of a legend he had never sought, holding the respect of a people who once saw his kind as nothing but danger. The hidden truth was no longer hidden. It was alive in every whisper, every bow, every heart that carried the story forward. The fleet remained in silent orbit around Haven's Edge, their silver hulls reflecting the glow of distant stars. Inside the flagship, Aaron still struggled to understand the weight of what had happened. The commander and his people bowed to him, a simple mechanic with nothing but bare feet and a heart that had acted without thought. But peace never lasted long in space. Where whispers traveled, so did shadows, and shadows carried danger. The first sign of trouble came as alarms echoed through the flagship's halls. A sharp voice rang across the comms. Unknown vessels detected, multiple signatures approaching at high velocity. The commander's eyes narrowed. Pirates. Or worse. Aaron turned to the girl who stood at his side. What's happening? She spoke quickly, her voice calm but firm. There are those who wish to see us fall. Our fleet is strong, but our enemies are many. They will see our bow to you as weakness. Aaron's heart raced. And what does that mean? It means, she said, that you are now part of the test. Through the great window of the flagship, Aaron saw them. Dark ships emerged from the void, sharp and jagged like teeth. Their hulls carried no markings, but their intent was clear. They spread out across the system, encircling the fleet with predatory grace. The commander raised his staff and orders rang out. Silver ships shifted into formation, shields blazing to life. Energy hummed through the air, vibrating the decks beneath Aaron's feet. Soldiers rushed through the halls, their armor clashing in unison. Aaron pressed a hand against the glass, his chest tight. He had never been part of a battle, never even seen one from this close. He felt powerless, a small man caught between giants, but the commander's voice broke through his fear. This is the trial, Vera said. The stars watch, and so do my people. If we fall now, all that we swore to you will mean nothing. Aaron swallowed hard. What can I do? I'm not a soldier. The commander looked at him with steady eyes. Humans are not only soldiers. You are something more. Show us that again. Aaron did not know how. His mind spun, searching for answers. Then he remembered the machines he repaired every day. Small devices overlooked by most, but vital when they worked. He was no fighter, but he was a fixer. And sometimes that was enough. The first wave of enemy fire struck like thunder. Explosions lit the void, shaking the flagship. Silver ships darted into position, answering with blazing beams of energy. The dark ships were ruthless, striking not only at the fleet but at Haven's Edge itself. The station shields flared under heavy bombardment. Shields failing, a voice cried. Aaron's hands clenched. He knew those shields. He had worked on smaller models of them in the station's repair stalls. Their systems were fragile under constant fire, but he also knew their weak points. He turned to the girl. Take me to your engineers. I might be able to help. She nodded without hesitation, leading him down the long hall to the engine sector. There, crews scrambled among glowing consoles, shouting numbers and commands. Sparks burst from overloaded wires. The smell of burning metal filled the air. Aaron rushed to a flickering screen. The readouts were familiar, though larger than any he had seen. He scanned the numbers, his mind racing. They're channeling too much energy through the outer shield rings, he muttered. It's going to overload. A young officer glared at him. You are no soldier. Step back, Aaron shook his head. I don't need to be a soldier. I'm a mechanic. If you want the shields to last, reroute the flow through the secondary coils. It'll spread the pressure evenly. The officer hesitated, but the girl stepped forward. Do as he says. Reluctantly, the crew obeyed. They adjusted the controls and the lights steadied. The shield readouts climbed, stabilizing under the new flow. The station was safe for the moment. The officer's eyes widened. It worked. Aaron exhaled, sweat running down his brow. Keep the balance or the whole system will collapse. The commander's voice thundered through the comms. The shields hold. Strike back! Silver ships surged forward, beams slicing through the dark enemy vessels. Explosions scattered debris into the void, but more enemies poured in. The battle was far from over. Hours passed like fire. Aaron moved from one console to another, guiding engineers, repairing connections, and giving advice wherever he could. The girl stayed by his side, steadying him when exhaustion threatened to pull him down. Yet no matter how hard they fought, the enemy pressed harder. The dark ships were relentless, their weapons tearing holes in the fleet. In the command hall, the commander faced his crew with grim resolve. They test us waiting for weakness. If we break, all is lost. But if we endure, they will bow as we have bowed. Aaron heard these words through the comms. His chest ached, but a strange fire burned within him. He was only one man. Yet somehow he had become part of something far greater. The trial was not only for the fleet, it was for him as well. At last, the enemy changed tactics. A massive dark cruiser broke from the ranks, charging straight toward the flagship. Its weapons flared, striking the shields with blinding force. The ship trembled, alarm screaming. They target the core. A voice cried. Aaron saw the readouts. The next blast would breach the defense. The flagship would fall, he thought quickly. The shield was strong, but the energy routing could not handle such focused fire. Unless... "Shut down the outer coils," he shouted. The officer stared at him. "That will leave us exposed." "Not if you trust me," Aaron said. His voice was steady, though his heart pounded. The girl's eyes met his. She nodded once. "Do it," the order was given. The outer coil shut down, and for a brief moment the flagship seemed naked against the storm. The enemy fired again, their beam cutting across the hull. But instead of tearing through, the energy twisted, redirected by the inner coils Iran had rerouted. The blast bent back, striking the enemy cruiser itself. The explosion lit the void like a new star. The massive cruiser broke apart, scattering in burning fragments. The hull erupted in cheers. The enemy fleet, shaken by the loss of their strongest ship, began to retreat. One by one, their dark shapes vanished into the shadows of space, leaving only silence behind. Inside the flagship, soldiers struck their armor in unison, their voices rising in a chant of victory. The commander stood tall, his staff raised high. "The trial of fire is past," he declared, "and it was not only strength that saved us. It was the mind of a human, the will of one who gives even when all seems lost." He turned to Aaron, his sharp eyes softening. "You are no soldier, yet you fought with us. You are no commander, yet you guided my people. This is why we bow to you." Aaron's knees trembled. He had not sought glory, but now the weight of hundreds of voices pressed on him. He felt unworthy, yet he also felt proud, not for himself, but for what humans could show across the stars. The girl stepped closer, her silver robe flowing. She looked at him with warmth in her eyes. "You gave me your shoes. Today you gave my people hope. Do you see now why they honor you?" Aaron nodded slowly. "I see. It wasn't the shoes. It wasn't the shields. It was the choice. To give, to help. That is what matters," the commander's voice rang out once more. "Let all who hear this know. Humans are not only feared for war, they are honored for compassion, for courage, for the will to stand in fire and not yield. The stars themselves will remember this day." The fleet outside roared with lights, their bows shining brighter than ever before. And in the silence of space, the trial of fire ended, but the legend of the barefoot human had only just begun. The battle had ended, and the stars once again stretched in quiet across the void. Haven's Edge hung in orbit, untouched but shaken, while the silver fleet of the alien armada glimmered around it like a protective crown. Aaron, still barefoot, walked slowly through the corridors of the flagship, trying to understand the strange new world he had stepped into. The girl walked beside him, her steps measured and graceful. She no longer wore the oversized boots he had given her. They had been returned to him as a gift he could never wear again, polished and refined, a symbol of what had begun as a small act of kindness. "You saved them," she said softly. "You saved the fleet and the station. You showed my people the truth about humans. You are more than a mechanic. You are a hero." Aaron shook his head. "I did what I could. I only helped where I could help. I never expected any of this," the girl smiled. "That is exactly why it matters. True strength is shown when it is given freely, not for reward." Commander Vera stood waiting in the council chamber. Aaron approached cautiously, unsure if he was ready for more recognition. The commander's gaze was steady, but his expression was softer than when they had first met. "You have done more than any human before you," Vera said. "You have changed the way my people see your kind. You have proven that courage and compassion can stand against power and fear alike. Your actions today will be remembered for generations." Aaron felt a weight settle on his shoulders. He was not used to praise, and the enormity of it was overwhelming. Yet beneath the pressure, a sense of calm pride grew. He realized that what he had done, the gift of shoes, the guidance during battle, was not about glory. It was about choices, and choices had consequences. Why me? He asked quietly. Why would my small act mean so much? Vera's eyes softened. Because it was human. Humans act in ways others do not. They show courage not because it is demanded, but because it is right. They show kindness not for reward, but because it matters. That is why the Armada bows, and that is why your legacy begins here. The girl led Aaron to the observation deck. From there, the stars stretched endlessly, and the ships of the fleet formed a brilliant halo around Haven's Edge. Aaron could see the entire station, its spires and domes, its crowded streets, and the small beings going about their lives. This is what your actions created, she said. The fleet will no longer see humans as simple outsiders. They will respect us both because you showed them the value of empathy and courage. You have begun a bridge between our worlds. Aaron looked at the ships, remembering the chaos of the trial of fire. The sound, the vibration, the fear, and then the relief. It had all felt overwhelming, but now, seeing the result, he understood. One person, acting with a simple heart, had changed the perception of thousands. It's hard to believe one person can do that, he murmured. The girl shook her head. One person can, and you are that person. You will be remembered not for your strength alone, but for your choices, for showing that humans can give what others guard as treasures: trust, courage, and kindness. Days passed, and life on Haven's Edge slowly returned to its usual rhythm. Yet nothing was truly the same. Aliens walked with more respect in the corridors. Merchants greeted Aaron with nods of acknowledgement. Engineers asked his advice not only on repairs but on problem-solving and leadership. A quiet legend had begun to grow around him, spreading from station to station, carried in whispers and tales. Aaron continued his work, still repairing machines, still tinkering with devices, and still helping whoever needed it. Nothing had changed in the routines of his life, but everything had changed in the eyes of those around him. He had discovered that heroism was not always loud or flashy. Sometimes it was quiet, unnoticed at first, and powerful beyond measure. One morning, a delegation from the alien fleet arrived at the station. They came not with weapons, but with gifts of metals, tools, and rare resources. They bowed to him with solemn respect, recognizing his role in the survival of the fleet and the preservation of peace. You are one of us now, the girl said, a bridge between humans and our people. Your choices will be taught to others as examples. You have done what few could and what no one expected. Aaron shook his head. I am not one of you. I am only me. You are more than that, she replied. You are what humans can be at their best, and that is why your legacy matters. Word of Iran's deeds spread beyond Haven's Edge, traveling to distant stations and planets. Humans who had long been overlooked or feared found new respect. Alien traders who once ignored human customers now sought alliances. The story of the barefoot human and the alien girl became a symbol, proof that small acts of kindness could ripple across galaxies. Aaron remained humble. He did not take credit for the battle. He did not claim leadership of fleets. Instead, he taught what he could: how to fix broken things, how to think clearly under pressure, and how to act with honesty and integrity. His presence became a lesson in quiet courage, and his choices continued to influence people far beyond the station. The girl, now recognized as the daughter of Commander Vera and a young leader in her own right, often visited Iran. Together they walked the station, shared meals, and exchanged ideas. She reminded him of the impact one small act could have, and he reminded her that even leaders needed to care for others, no matter their status. Through this friendship, a connection grew between humans and her people. Trade routes opened that had been closed for centuries. Misunderstandings dissolved in the light of respect and mutual trust. Where once humans were outsiders, now they were valued partners. Years later, Aaron looked back on that moment in the market when he had given away his shoes. At the time, it had seemed trivial, almost foolish. Now he realized it had been a turning point, not only for him but for countless others. The choice had been simple, but its consequences were profound. He walked barefoot through the market once more, smiling at children and traders alike. Some still whispered his name, some still spoke of the legend, but for him it was no longer about recognition. It was about the lives touched, the peace preserved, and the bridges built. The fleet continued to orbit Haven's Edge, not as an occupying force but as allies and friends. The soldiers who had once bowed now worked side by side with humans, learning from each other and sharing knowledge. What began as a small gesture, the giving of shoes, had grown into a movement of respect, understanding, and unity. Commander Vera often visited, nodding to Aaron with quiet approval. "You showed us what it means to be human," he said, "and that lesson will last for generations." Aaron would smile and say little, for he understood that the power of humans was not in pride or weapons, but in choice, in compassion, in courage that was given freely, without expectation, without reward. That was the true legacy. And in the quiet of space, amid the silver ships and endless stars, the story of the barefoot human and the alien girl became a beacon of hope. It proved that one person's simple act could change the fate of worlds, that humility and kindness could hold power beyond imagination, and that humanity, small, unassuming, and compassionate, could inspire the galaxy itself. Aaron looked at the stars one last time that evening. He felt the weight of all he had witnessed, all he had been part of, and all he had helped create. And he knew, without doubt, that it was not the fleet, not the battles, not the legend alone that mattered. It was the choice to act, to give, and to care that had made the human legacy shine across the universe. And so, the barefoot human who had once given his shoes to a struggling alien girl became more than a story. He became a symbol, a bridge, and a reminder that courage, compassion, and simple acts of kindness can ripple across the stars and shape the course of history forever.